One of the most frustrating things about interviewing is that you can be really close to giving a great answer to an interview question, but a small difference in the way you communicate it might be the difference between absolutely crushing the interview question and maybe some of your message not quite landing. In today's video, I'm going to give you 5 common ways that people who are interviewing mess up their answers so that you can avoid them for every interview you have for the rest of your life. Let's go. Hi everybody, I'm Ben White with Ben Talks Talent. I've got 12 years experience in interviewing, hiring, and recruiting, and I'm passionate about using my experience to help you become the best candidate possible and land your next job. In today's video, we're going to be talking about subtle communication differences that could mean the world when it comes to nailing an interview question. But before we get into that topic, do me a favor. If you are new here, take 3 seconds, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and hit that notification bell. That way you never miss one of my free videos that are all designed to help you. And if you are not new, well, hey, look at you, you're back. Have you been working out? Because you look great. All right, let's go. Now, the first mistake I need to talk about is not actually answering the interview question. This is actually feedback I get from hiring managers all the time. They'll say to me, Ben, I asked a few questions of this candidate and they danced around the question a little bit, and they gave me some examples of what they've done, but it never really accurately answered the question I was asking them. So one of the things that you have to keep in mind when someone asks you an interview question, that you're actually getting to the core of what it is they are asking you. So don't be thinking about it when they're talking to you. Listen to them completely, hear what they have to say, and make sure you're sharing an example that actually does land. It actually does get at what they were trying to get the information from. Now, sometimes this probably happens because people don't prepare. They're on the spot, they weren't ready for an interview question, then it gets asked to them, and then they are fumbling for an answer. So one of the things you can do to potentially avoid this, and I've given this example a lot of times, it's a tool I love to use prior to interviewing, and that's make an impact list. That's pick the 2 or 3 most meaningful things you've done in every single role you've been at, writing them out on a piece of paper, familiarizing yourself with the details. That way, when you're interviewing and they're asking you questions, it's easy to recall some of the things you've done, and that way you can answer the question. Now, the second thing people do frequently that is a problem is they are too vague on the answers they are giving. I actually had a call earlier today and I was talking to one of my hiring managers and he said, Ben, I think this candidate was a really great culture fit, but I'm not so sure about the technical fit. I asked a bunch of questions and all the answers were really high level. There wasn't any detail. Now, the sad thing about this is this candidate might actually be technically qualified, but the way this candidate communicated the answers, it left the hiring manager thinking, well, this person doesn't have the depth of understanding required to do this role. So when you're giving an example to a person and you're talking them through a certain problem or what you did or how you solved it or what you would do, make sure you dig down to an appropriate level that demonstrates you actually know what you're talking about. Because if you don't and you keep it 10,000 foot view, they're going to arrive at the conclusion that you don't know how to explain it in a greater depth, and you don't want that. Now, the third point here is actually a counterpoint to the second one, and the third thing that people do wrong is they go too long. They talk too much. The examples they give, instead of being like a 1 minute or a 90-second example that is thorough, detailed, and to the point, they go on for way too long. This could actually be really frustrating for an interview. I can tell you as someone who has conducted thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of interviews that when you have a question that should be relatively brief and a person goes on for 5 or 6 minutes, that can be incredibly frustrating. And one of the reasons is you might have 10, 15, 20 questions you need to get to in a certain allotted period of time. And when someone goes really long in a question that really doesn't take that much time, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I'm not going to be able to get through everything. And that is not a good thing, that's a bad thing. So one of the candidate mistakes that you should avoid is making sure you don't spend too much time belaboring a point and answering a question. Most questions you're going to get asked in your interview can be answered between 30 and 120 seconds. There are very few times where any question you were asked is going to take you 3, 4, or 5 minutes. And I think it'll be abundantly clear when those occurrences are, because it'll be a large question that requires a ton of explanation. And most questions just aren't that. Now, the fourth mistake that candidates make, and this is a frustrating one, is they answer an interview question, but they do things out of order. First and foremost, if you're answering an interview question, this isn't the movie Memento. This isn't an unreliable narrator story. You need to share with them the order in which things happen. Don't start at the finish and then bring something from the beginning and tell them about a middle and then bring them to the end again. you need to go in chronological order. I like to talk about the STAR method whenever we're talking about behavioral interview questions. Those are any question that starts with, tell me about a time when. All right. And a lot of people will be all over the place, piecemealing their answer back together, and you don't want to do that. You want to start with a situation. So what was the situation? Task. What was the task that you needed to complete? Action. What were your specific actions that you took to resolving the issue? And R, result. What was the result of everything we just talked about? So whenever you're answering an interview question, make sure that you go in order and don't jump around from place to place. I can't tell you how many times I'm talking to a candidate and they'll start taking me through an example and they go, actually, hold on, let me back up. And then you're like, oh, wait, let me fast forward. Okay, let me back up again. That is mildly disorienting and very challenging to listen to. So make sure you're answering in a chronological order in an efficient manner. Lastly, not being able to answer follow-up questions. If someone asks you a question like, Ben, what is the most significant thing you've accomplished in your career? And you give them an example, right? And it's a good example and it makes you look good as a candidate. And then they ask you a follow-up question. Oh, well, where did you do that? What company was it at? How long did it take? Was this part of a team or were you doing this solo? Did you have ownership of this project or were you just a contributing member? Ben, if you could do anything different in that project you did, what would you have changed? What was the moment in which you knew it would be successful? Was there any doubt during this project that you might not reach the conclusion you're hoping? All these are questions where someone might be digging deeper to get additional details. And I can tell you, when you do that and the candidate doesn't have the answers, it makes you think they're making it up. It makes you think maybe they're taking somebody else's example and passing it off as their own. Or maybe they're just thinking of what you want to hear, but they didn't actually do it. And the very first example, I talked about making a list, an impact list, and talking through your most significant achievements. The reason I advise people to do that is because one of the last things you want to happen is for you to give a great example, but then not be able to answer any follow-up questions because you just aren't familiar with the details, because it makes you look like you were making it up. And if you are not making it up, that is the last thing you want the person interviewing you to think. So make sure you take the time to refamiliarize yourself with some of your most significant achievements before you ever go into any interview. Well, there you have it. Those are the 5 little communication mistakes that I think people frequently make. If you can avoid those as a candidate, you will do much better in your upcoming interviews. Good luck in your next interview. You got this.